Did you notice how brief our scripture readings are today? It's as if those who constructed the lectionary knew that our attention span in the warm weather of summer is somewhat limited. However brief as they are crammed densely with so many possible themes for our reflection. And so instead of one homily, I have prepared three. Two based on the gospel and one on the epistle reading, and all of them dealing with the overarching image of the shepherd which permeates all of the readings today. But don't worry, I am only allowing myself 2 pages for each sermon, which will be about 2 or 3 pages shorter than my usual one theme homily. Okay, sermon number 1 from the gospel. What does Jesus do when the disciples come back from their first missionary journey and they tell him how successful they were in curing the sick? He orders them to come away and rest for a while. Like a shepherd, he takes care of his little flock of 12, wanting to feed and refresh them. This gives us the theme of Sabbath rest. Now, we Americans are not all that successful with free time. Take our vacations, for example. We average only 2 weeks annually. Compared to the Germans, who take 6 weeks, and the French, who take 5, we look like real vacation misers. The last 15 months of COVID confinement have made us even more confused about time. Have you had trouble remembering what day it is? And have you allowed your work and your leisure time to dissolve into just one long day, repeating itself? In his book on the Sabbath, Rabbi Abraham Heschel says that the Sabbath is the only one of God's creations called holy. Everything else is called good. Only the Sabbath is called holy. It's not just free time, but rather freedom time. It's a time to remember who we are and whose we are. A time to remember that God created the world completely without our help. And the world will be preserved at least till Monday without our help. So what lesson can we learn from sermon number 1? Let's try to make the Sabbath look and feel different. Tilden Edwards suggests that it is important to find some way of signaling withdrawal from our daily routine. When we celebrate the Sabbath, we should dress differently, change locations, take the phone off the hook, do something specific which signals to us, to the world, and to God that we are on Sabbath. Sermon number 2 from the gospel. What does Jesus do when he and his disciples arrive at that deserted place, only to find that the crowds that they were trying to get away from have already beaten them there? He takes pity on them, because Mark tells us they were like sheep without a shepherd. So what does Jesus do? Does he feed them? No. He began to teach them. Even before he feeds them, which Jesus will do in the next 9 verses of this chapter of Mark's gospel, Jesus teaches the crowds. Why is this? Because, using the analogy of sheep are not the brightest of animals, and they always need direction. Unlike dogs, cats, and birds, all of which seem to have a built-in GPS system, sheep are clueless. Separated from the herd, they have no sense of direction. That is why the lost sheep gets lost. Because when he is away from the flock, he just gives up and lies down wherever he is and doesn't budge. The crowds that were attracted to Jesus were hungering for care and guidance. Like the Israelites of Jeremiah's time in the first reading, they had been led astray and then abandoned by careless shepherds who were more concerned for their own well-being than that of the flock. As in Jesus' time today, there are so many still hungering for instruction as to what is important in life. So many lost sheep looking for direction. They may be parents who are sick with grief over the future of a troubled child, a man stripped of his dignity by unemployment, a woman facing pregnancy alone, elderly people who feel the diminishing surge of life in their bodies, People who are angry and confused because they have lost confidence in their leaders, whether political or religious. They are people looking for answers and for meaning. They are like sheep without a shepherd. And Jesus, in our second sermon, calls on us to shepherd them, to offer them comfort and direction, healing and hope. Today's epistle reading from the letter to the Ephesians gives us the theme for our final sermon, reconciliation. The letter focuses on the division within the Christian community itself. It insists that through the blood of the cross, Christ has broken down the wall of divisions that separated Jewish Christians from the Greek Christians. By his death, Christ has put their enmity to death and has brought them together in himself. He has not merely brought them peace, he has become their peace. Reconciled with God and with one another, they have become a new creation, a new body. Reconciliation is the work of every one of us. Richard Branson's intergalactic flight this past week has captured our imagination in seeing the Earth from another perspective. Taking only 90 minutes to circle the globe gives us a view of the unity that should be reflected on the Earth's surface and among its inhabitants. We know that this is far from the reality which we live. Years ago, Marshall McLuhan said it so well. He said, "There are no passengers on the spaceship Earth. We are all crew. We are not residents on Earth. We are its citizens. And its difference in both cases is responsibility." The deep divisions in the world, in our country, and in our church are ours to own, to address, and to heal. Politics, racism, gender bias, economic disparity, a seemingly endless litany of causes that polarize people and nations. So much to do. Perhaps we can start by imitating the Good Shepherd and finding and helping just one of our sisters or brothers. Well, there you have it. 3 sermons, 3 tasks in just 6 pages. But of all things, the first is take the day off. Get some rest. Live the Sabbath. Monday will be here soon enough.